So let's have a look at Waterfall vs Agile and see who wins. Well, the answer, it depends what you have to do, really. Say you have you're working for a government and you have an important legislative change to do, and you know it's not going to change and it's gonna something for the next 5 years. So in this case, you know, okay, I go with Waterfall, no problem. Even going with Agile is not even an option. But on the other hand, as we've seen in the previous example, if you're a client and you want to have a feel first before fully committing to all your requirements. You know what you want, you know your end game, you know you want a website, but for the finer detail, you're not completely sure yet. You would like to try it first, because if it's a complete failure, then you could always stop. So that's another advantage. You don't have to go all the way. But let's review those pros and cons one by one. So the pro of Waterfall is it's easier to assess schedule and budget requirements. So for a project manager, in theory, it's good, it's easier. They give you a clear project scope from the start, so you know all the requirements before you go into execution. So before you go there, you have all your requirements. Another advantage is project plan can be repeatable for similar projects. You've done it for once, another project very similar, you can just reuse it. Now, the cons. So there's a long time between drinks, more or less. You have your requirement here. The implementation is all the way here. So all the things that could happen during this, this is why I was giving the example as a government change, for instance. That's a very good example to go in Waterfall, because you know that nothing will happen in this. But you could be in a scenario when you do your requirements here and it's a 2-year project, and chances are things will change in these 2 years. So this is, I suppose, the disadvantage of a Waterfall is you would have to use the very heavy change request process here, change control process. And this is a bit tied up with this, where you cannot react quickly to changes, because you've done all the work here already. If you get a new requirement that contradicts a little bit, then you need to go back there, and it's a bit of a long process. And this ties in with this one as well. The change control process is heavy in a way. So if they want something different, your project office might have a fit, and they say, oh no, they need to go through all this process again. So it's very heavy in this way. Let's have a look. Agile, pros and cons. What is great with Agile is you get a lot of customer feedback. In Waterfall, in theory, or hopefully you do it a bit differently, but in theory, they cannot see, they've done their requirements in 2020, they don't see the screen until they do the testing. It could be 2022 on a very large project. There's not a lot of interaction, if you like. There will be some during the design. They would look at the design and the documentation, but actually seeing it, that there will be there will be much interaction with the customer. But here, very often, you implement something quick initially, and after you have constant customer feedback. So there will not be a big surprise when implementation comes. Another advantage is the project can deliver some business benefits quickly, as we've seen with the example of the mountain gear website. So you can, even if you don't have the full functionality of the website, you can already provide some very good benefits to the business, and you can show your product to the client. Obviously a good one, there's collaboration, and not only collaboration with the customer, but there's constant collaboration with all the team members. What are the disadvantages? The disadvantages are more driven by the type of project you work on, I suppose. So more uncertainty around schedule and costs. The budget could be allocated sometimes, so you have 6 months of a designer, a developer, and a tester. And in 6 months, after 6 months, the money stops. But sometimes it's very difficult to assess, because, let's say you work on this website, mountain gear, and there is one small change from the business, another small change from the business, and you realize that the business really is not really sure. So and there's all the so the project takes longer, so means more cost. So it's not it's not as easy. Um, Disadvantage. So it can get out of hands without strong oversight. So it's very important that, for instance, if you have a business person involved here, that he or she has the authority and doesn't work too much in isolation, because otherwise it's going to be bombarding with a lot of different types of requirements. And if the business analyst or the developer are not strong enough to say, well, this is a bit contradicting what we agreed on the last sprint and the likes, it can easily get out of control. So strong oversight is really important for Agile. So it's not okay, do whatever you like, we'll let you play with the software for 6 months, but some very strong oversight, and we want to have a clear path to what the final delivery will be. The disadvantage in a client service provider scenario, that can make the client nervous, and that's something that I have experienced. A client can be concerned that this will be an ongoing process, because they sometimes they do have a clear idea in mind, and they don't want to go in the uncertainty of even the requirements being refined, in the design changing, and potentially in a cost is changing. You're a service provider, you're used to working this way, but sometimes the client, I've seen clients that they just don't want it. They say there's just too much uncertainty on this. And the contract, usually a bit scary, because obviously the service provider wants to protect themselves. So to summarize, I suppose Waterfall best suited for project with a strict budget, clear vision from the client, and likely to change. So Agile is best suited for when some components can bring business benefits early, and I think as we've seen. And when there is frequent client feedback, it's best to have them under an Agile model than just during a Waterfall model.